So before I go any further, I'm just going to label this guy PTA and SE, Paint to Animation and Sand Cohesion combined. Now I'm going to make another copy of this and dive in. So what we're going to do now, I'm going to just delete this guy here and delete this guy as well. So what we want to do now is, let's say that we want to get the sand off of the body, but only on the surface of the body. And we want the interior to stay intact. So basically it's going to appear like the sand is shredding off of the water flow or liquid flow, yet the body stays intact. So how can we do that? For us to do that, first of all, what we need to do is find out the points that are exterior and the points that are interior. So we might need a little bit more resolution for this. So I'm going to go ahead and add a bit more resolution to this. I'm going to get rid of this some cache here. So the best way to do that is using something called a distance and volume sample. And volume sample will give the distance from the outside or the exterior to the interior. So how do we do that? I'm going to get VDB from polygons here and connect it to before we use the MPM source. So technically it'll be like that. Obviously we want a better resolution here. So 0.0115. All right, that's good enough, I think. And we're just going to really reshape this. And I'm going to just template what's happening with the actual one. So it's a bit too much. I'm going to erode that so I can see that it's pretty close. Good. I'm going to use the world space units and change this to 0.005. Yeah, that is looking pretty close. Not great, but pretty close. All right, now let's use a point wrangle and connect our sand source on the left first input, and then this guy on the second input. So what we're going to do is we're going to say f at dist is equal to volume sample 1. So you can see here it comes up as volume sample is geometry is the first one, and then prim number, and then vector position. So we want the geometry from 1, and then we want to measure it with 0, which is the sand, and then at P, at position. Let me add a color here just to visualize what we are doing. Name from attribute, and we will say distance. And let's just have a look at what the distance value is. So the distance value is 0.02 to minus 0.03. Minus 0.03 to 0.02. So somewhere you can see now it's in wireframe format. You can see the outside points are white while the inside is black. That's what we're after. So this is a visualization. So let me just call this res distance. So now what we want to do is we want to create a group. It's called group expression. So using a group expression, we're going to create a group. So we're going to say group is inner or outer, or let's call it outer. And the Rex expression is at distance is greater than 0.01, let's say. And this will be point group. So if I now choose, I can't really see what's happening. Let's say that we want to 0. There you go. So that's your outer. So now to visualize this as well, we're going to create a blanks. And we're going to call that group called outer. So there it is. And we can adjust it now depending on what we need. So there you go. I pulled most of it. Yeah, I think that's pretty good. So if I now look at interior, so there it is. So this is going to hold on while the outer isn't. I'm going to call this visualize outer group. So we're now going to feed that group into here. So nothing else has changed. Now inside of the solver, which I'm going to use the right hand side here, I'm just going to pin this flat shaded. I'm also going to get rid of the pin group here because we don't need that anymore. So in Geo7, inside of the solver, we're going to say if wet is equal to 1 and, which is double ampersand symbol, I at group underscore outer is equal to 1. Let me just double check the name outer. Yeah. So what I'm saying here is that if wet is equal to 1 and part of group outer, then you can do this, which is the sand cohesion is 0 and pin to animation is 0. If any one of those is not true, this is not going to come into play. So that's the idea. Right. let's now have a look at this. I'm going to go ahead and run the sim and I'll come back. The sim is done now. On the left hand side, as usual, it's both liquid and body, and the right hand side is just the body. As you can see, the inner is holding on to it while the outer is starting to drop. But there is a slight damage here where this part of the hand is just hanging on. But yeah, you just got to adjust that part with the distance, but it's working. Right. I'm going to move on now and we can double check that if this is actually working. Okay, let me see outer. There you go. I'm going to do this blast after the separation. There you go. So that's your inner, just like before, and that's your outer. So you can see, despite the fact it's receiving wet attribute, because that's why the reason is blue, it's not going to disintegrate. So let's double check that. So you can see none of this is actually falling apart. That confirms what we have done. So fantastic. Right. Let's ensure that this is also working in the render. But before we do that, I just need to go into here and change it to Geo7. This one is Geo7. Let's look at the render here. There you go. It's working. And let me go to frame number 240. You can see most of the body is still intact, and we can see some of the grains down here. That is that. We're going to move on to the next part, which is the last part.